morning, you guys. What is up? So I talked to a good friend of mine who I talk to on here all the time, and we were talking about how a lot of people have the misconception that when you're on methadone, it makes you high. Okay, so here I am. I want to let you guys know. I dosed today at about, what time is it now? It was about an hour and 15 minutes ago. About an hour and 15 minutes ago. And I'm not nodding out, I'm not high, and I'm also on an extremely high dose. Okay? I want to give people a little bit of insight on what methadone actually is, what it does, how it differs from Suboxone. So this is going to be a short little lesson. First of all, do I suggest methadone to every addict? Absolutely not. But if you have been using and have found that you simply cannot stop using, methadone or Suboxone might be right for you. If you were using pills, I'm not so sure. I've seen people get more addicted to methadone than pills, and then methadone becomes their drug of choice. So I don't know. I would say if you are a heroin addict and you have been using for a long time and you simply cannot do it alone without some type of medication, methadone or Suboxone might be right for you. I would always suggest Suboxone first. Methadone is like last option. Suboxone brings you about here. Methadone will take you up here or higher. Now, Suboxone did not work for me. It worked for a little bit until I started selling it for heroin. Methadone now, okay, so this is the way that it works. This is your receptors, your opiate receptors in your brain. What Suboxone does is it puts a barrier around them. So when you go to use drugs and it ends up like, I'm using my head as an example, it's like blocking it. It pounds off it, it blocks it. Now, imagine, let's see. Imagine the liquid in this bottle is, no, hold on. I'm literally going to give you an example. Okay, ignore the cup. This Beauty Blender sponge is your opiate receptors. Okay? This is the methadone. Just a little dose. It'll fill up the sponge, but there might still be room for more liquid to get in there. Adequate dose. Within about an hour, this is going to be full. This sponge will be full of methadone. This opiate receptor will be full. Okay? Now let's fill it up. So this is your opiate receptor. If you go to use heroin now, instead of bouncing off, what is going to happen? Not much. It can't break through the barrier. Like Suboxone, it can break through the barrier if you use more or enough. But with methadone, it can't. It's already too full. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so there's a little lesson. Moving on. I think methadone is a lot more short lasting than Suboxone, which is why you dose every day like that. I mean, Suboxone you dose multiple times a day, but I think, I don't know, methadone for me, I have to dose every morning at the same time. Suboxone I used to be able to wait a little bit, but if you are an addict and you are considering methadone or Suboxone, I would always say try Suboxone first because it's a lot easier to come off of. Methadone is more monitored, at least in the United States it is. You get drug tested very frequently. In New York, it's run by this thing called Oasis. Oasis is insanely strict. So these clinics, like, it's tough to get anything by them. Most of them, unless they just don't care. Now, like me, for example, when I first got on methadone the very first time, I had found that the first 6 months I was very, very tired. I was not nodding out. I was not high. I was tired. So if you know somebody who is new to methadone and you see that they are falling asleep or nodding out, and they're in their first year or their first 6 months being on methadone, please know this is normal. This is very normal. Their body is adjusting to a medication, okay? Everybody's body adjusts differently. Now, I used to fall asleep, not out, on methadone when I first got on a very low dose. Now, I am on, it's in the hundreds, almost close to 200, we'll say that. I do not out, I do not fall asleep, I am awake during the whole day, because that is the dose that is appropriate for my body, okay? And it's actually not even quite there yet, because if you ever wonder too if a dose is accurate or not, you can get a blood test called a peak and trough, okay? Now a peak and trough is where they give you a test right after you dose, 2 hours after you dose, and right before you dose, okay? And that kind of tests the levels in your body to see where you're at right after dosing, because it peaks at about 2 hours. I should be peaking at about now, my methadone peak. And as you can tell, I'm not high, I'm not nodding out, I'm not tired, I'm not, So I just want to show that methadone is not always this negative thing that people talk about. But, so that's why I wanted to talk to you guys about it today, because I see a lot of people who are subscribed to me are actually on methadone and suffering from addiction and things like that. So I wanted to kind of give you like a little lesson on methadone and Suboxone and the positives and the negatives to Suboxone or methadone, and some misconceptions and things that are not true that a lot of people say about methadone. So let's actually get into that now. The first thing about methadone makes you gain weight. That is not true. When you are an addict, you are running the streets, spending all your money on drugs, not eating properly, okay? And then when you get on methadone, and a lot of people are sleeping more, you start being less active because you're no longer running the streets for drugs. It's not the medication itself, it is how you are living now compared to how you're living before. And I wouldn't say gaining weight from methadone is always a bad thing. A lot of people addicts are very underweight and they need to gain some weight anyways. A lot of times, from what I have seen, a lot of people who have abused drugs end up with hypo or hyperthyroid. A lot of people who I know on methadone have hypothyroid, and that definitely contributes to weight gain. So just know, they do say that sometimes methadone can give you a little bit of a sweet tooth. Be aware of that. Carbs and sweet tooth, that's what they say, but I haven't experienced that on methadone. I had weight gain happen, but it was from hypothyroid, not from methadone. I've been on methadone multiple times, never had that issue. This last time I thought it was from the methadone, come to find out it was something different. Another thing is that it rots your teeth. Okay, methadone itself does not rot your teeth. Like any other medication, sometimes there's a side effect of dry mouth. All you need to do is make sure that you keep your mouth moist. There's mouthwash called Biotene, and that is very helpful. A lot of medications actually have a side effect of dry mouth, methadone being one of them. So methadone itself does not rot teeth. It's a side effect that from the medication that not everybody gets even, but a lot of medications have dry mouth as a side effect. You ever get cotton mouth from smoking weed? There you go, same thing. So I'd suggest going to the store, get some Biotene. I might have a bottle to show you what it looks like. And I don't. I am actually out right now. Another thing is that you need to know if you plan on ever being on methadone. We're going to get into Suboxone in a second too. This is mostly methadone I'm talking about. That's what I'm on right now. You have to be very careful with the drug interactions. But that is the same with Suboxone. A lot of times you need to be careful mixing benzos with Suboxone and or methadone. Sometimes it can be a combination that is life-saving, or it can be a combination that will kill you. So you need to be very careful to not cross that line. Again, I don't suggest Suboxone and Methadone for everyone. I know a couple people who I am very close with who I think should not be on Methadone at all. I think that Methadone is a last resort, a last ditch effort for people who absolutely cannot do it, okay? Another thing, a reason why I suggest Suboxone first is Methadone gets into your bones. So the withdrawal from Methadone is extremely painful, more painful than heroin. It's one of the most painful withdrawals. I'm talking pain-wise here. Not like, you know, how benzos can kill you and alcohol can kill you. I'm talking pain-wise. Methadone is one of the most painful withdrawals. I think it might be the most painful withdrawal. Suboxone is bad, but not that bad. But Methadone is absolutely the worst. And you have to know that, especially like if this is somebody's first time getting on a Methadone program, you probably will get kicked off at one point or another. A lot of people, from what I have seen, don't just hop on the Methadone clinic and have a great time the whole way through with no issues. People transfer, you have issues with counselors, whatever. I have been on a Methadone program 3 times now. And I have been to a few different facilities. So now I'm in the best. Sometimes it's hard too. You need to actually find a place that's really fits you. Okay? There are Methadone clinics that don't care. There are Methadone clinics where the staff is great, but the building just is falling apart and complete trash, and there's no bathrooms, and there are some, there are, like, where I go now is amazing. It's Whitney Young in Albany, and it is amazing, okay? And when I say amazing, I mean, I came from my past program where you could totally pull one over on them with a drug test. You can use fake pee, they barely ever whatever. These are mouth swab tests. You can't pull anything over them, but they don't punish you for relapsing either. They help you get through it, you know? Like, so it's like, this program I think is one of the best ones in the area. So if I could suggest, if you are an addict and you want to get sober, okay, a lot of addicts who want to get sober, what they start doing is buying Suboxone off the street. That is the biggest mistake you can make, because what happened and what can happen is the Suboxone can actually stop working for your body. If you keep switching from Suboxone to heroin to Suboxone to pills to Suboxone back and forth like that, it can actually stop working for you. And that's actually one of the things that happened to me too. There came a point when Suboxone stopped working for me because I kept switching back and forth, and it just, I don't remember what the actual name for it was, but if you're going to buy Suboxone off the street, you might as well find a doctor and just get on Suboxone. Before you ruin your chance at ever being able to use Suboxone the right way. Now, a couple other things I wanted to talk to you about. A lot of people say that being on Methadone does not make you sober. Well, I have a question for anyone who thinks that way. What does make you sober? What does make a person sober? Diabetics take insulin to live. When you have a headache, you take aspirin. Addiction is a disease, okay? So the disease of addiction you take medication for. Some people take Methadone, some people take Suboxone. You are taking a medication for your disease, okay? If you have diabetes and you need to take your insulin, if you have the disease of addiction and you need to, being on Methadone and Suboxone, being sober is a lot more than just staying off of drugs. These are controlled. These Suboxone and Methadone, they're controlled by doctors. Okay, they help guide you into a sober lifestyle. Now, to me, sobriety, being off drugs, is a very small part of sobriety. Sobriety is not just not using. Sobriety is living a sober lifestyle, changing your behaviors. It's a lot. And for me, I noticed when I got on Methadone, it was a lot easier for me to change my lifestyle, change my behaviors, change my friends, and have a sober lifestyle. Okay? So do I think that being on Methadone and Suboxone as long as you are not using heroin or whatever your drug of choice is before makes you sober, absolutely, absolutely. And don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise, because you are no longer stealing, you're no longer homeless, running the streets, robbing your friends, robbing your family. You're not doing all that for methadone or Suboxone, as long as you're getting it from a doctor. You are now living a sober lifestyle. You are being sober and you are on a controlled medication from a specialist doctor who thinks that you need it. And if I were you and you were on methadone or Suboxone, I would never tell anybody anyways. I wouldn't tell anybody. I would just keep that right to yourself, because a lot of times, like, people will come to me and they'll know, like, I'll be like, yes, I'm sober now. Like, they'll be like, that's so great. You look great. You seem like everything's great. And then, you know, we talk about my sobriety, and the second that I mention methadone, I'm not sober anymore. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. If I take a Tylenol, does that make me not sober too? But anyways, another thing is just like, I would be very cautious of ever getting on a clinic if you think you might not need it, because it is a lot of responsibility and is not something easy to come off of. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk to you guys about that today. Give you guys a little bit of insight on what it's like to be on methadone. For me, what I do is every morning I have to get up, I go to the clinic, I dose, I come back home, and I live my life. And that's it. You get drug tested there. If you're sober for 90 days, it's a lot more than that in my program. It's like you have to be sober off of everything for 90 days. You have to have a job. If you can work, you have to have an approved home. You have to have completed all of your groups. You have to have given every single, if you miss a drug test, if for whatever reason, there's a lot that you need to do to be able to get take-home bottles, but you can get take-home bottles, so you don't have to go every day, which is really nice too. And that's something that I'm striving for and I'm working towards, and I would like, but at the same time, I don't know, with the amount that people rob my house and stuff, I don't know if it's great to have bottles here. But yeah, so I wanted to talk to you guys about that today. If anybody has any questions about methadone or Suboxone, leave it in the comment section down below and we can talk about it again. If anybody has any questions about addiction, recovery, anything, I am always here. That's just something I wanted to talk to you guys about. And now let's see what time it is. It is 10:30. If people believe that you're getting high off methadone, people get high off methadone, that would mean I'm at my peak right now. Hold on, come on. Focus. My pupils are average size, normal. I do have some makeup on. Not high. If I didn't tell you guys that I was on methadone, a lot of you wouldn't even know. So, anybody, and another thing that I want to get into at another point is addict shaming. I think that that's a very serious topic, and I'm going to get into that probably tomorrow. I'm going to start doing some segments on this, maybe like a couple times a week I'll talk about these types of things with addiction. YouTube seems to demonetize these videos that I make talking about addiction. If anybody wants to donate, make a donation so that I can kind of continue to do these types of things. Please, I have a Google Wallet down below. You can use, I think it's Google Pay now, or Android, it's Google Pay now is what it's called. If anybody wanted to make a one-time donation, that would be really nice. Nobody ever feel obligated to. Definitely don't feel obligated to. But that is down below. And I have some contact information down below. I have tons of links down below that are really cool. Check it out. But also subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, and become a part of the Gina fam, because this is the only place on YouTube where you will ever find the friendliest people in the comment section. Everybody here is so kind to each other. We all love each other. That's why we call it the Gina fam, because we are a family now. I love you guys, and I'm glad that I was able to talk to you guys about this now, and I will talk to you guys later. So, love you. Bye.